Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Butterfly Spirit 314, and today's video is going to be kind of a little bit of a diversion from what I've been talking about. So recently I've been talking about tarot cards, and today I kind of, started to wonder if people with kids are struggling, which is the title of today's wonderful video. So there's a girl who just started working at my job. She's been there for about a month. And at first, I thought she was a young girl in her 20s and everything and stuff. And, I was thinking, like, okay, maybe she just got out of college or something like that, and stuff, because she looks really young and stuff and things. And so, you know, I wasn't sure, but I overheard her and another coworker talking about the fact that she had a kid. Like, whoa, So I heard her mention that she has like a 2-year-old daughter, and I was like, okay. And so today she admitted to me that she has 2 kids, and I was like, whoa, you have 2 kids? I'm like, she doesn't like give off a look like she has 2 kids. You know what I'm saying? And so I noticed in a conversation with her today, like I was kind of asking her, stuff like, hey, like I asked people at my job, like stuff like, hey, just like to make conversation. Like I was like, would you end up having like a job, like working on a soap opera? Like, how would you feel about that? And she was like, well, it depends on the money. And I was like, money? I'm like, wow, and I didn't think about that, you know what I'm saying? And so a few days ago, she was saying that, I noticed actually probably like Wednesday or Thursday, she was talking about how, it would be great if somebody can help with paying her bills or something like that. Because I was kind of joking around and I was talking about like, it'd be great if like, some really ultra rich people would help people out, and I was talking, joking around about starting a charity and, having like somebody wealthy donate to my charity and stuff like that. It was kind of something to be funny, you know what I'm saying? And what she was saying, she was like, well, I could sure use somebody to, help pay my bills and stuff like that, And I was like, pay her bills, you know what I'm saying? And so I was like, you know, and, you know, she's a smart young lady. I will say that she's a very smart young lady and stuff. She's in the process of working on getting her realtor's license. So she's going to be a realtor. So she's almost about to get her license and stuff. So she was telling me about, how, being a realtor would be a great side hustle because somebody can make like $50,000 and stuff like that, side hustle and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, that sounds kind of interesting. That sounds kind of cool. And so I was like, that's kind of got me thinking about, maybe kind of doing that. And so, from the conversations I've had with my, new coworker, I noticed that her mind goes to money, a lot. And we all think about money. You know what I'm saying? We all think about money. I'm sure you do, I do, everybody does. But my coworker, especially, she's thinking a lot about money. And I was just like, hmm, that's interesting, you know. So, I guess, people with kids must be struggling because, you know, I know from people in my family, um, one of my siblings has a child, and my sibling, she has been working at her job for a couple decades, and she's supporting a child and everything like that. And she tells me about how it's difficult to do that because financially it's a lot of money. She talks about how you have to pay for like the cost of her child going to school and everything like that. And like her mind is on, on like, her child and, just a whole host of things, you know what I'm saying? And, for my sibling, like, I can tell it must be hard to have a child in today's economy these days because, I hear from my sibling talking about it, and so for my coworker, it must be super hard because she has two kids. My sibling has one kid, but my coworker has two kids. And I noticed that my coworker was mentioning about how you know she said she would not she is she's become closer with her family because she has children, because she needs help, people to help her out with watching her kids. And so I was just like, you know and she was like, I wonder what my life would be like if I never had kids. And she was like, oh, well, don't get me started thinking about that. you know and I was like, well, your life will be different if you don't have kids, because if you don't have children, you don't have to worry about the costs associated with kids. You don't have to worry about childcare. You don't have to worry about having, multiple mouths to feed. You know what I'm saying? Um, you don't have to worry about, buying school supplies. You don't have to worry about, continuously buying clothes and shoes and all that stuff. You'll be thinking about expenses for yourself, not necessarily worrying about covering expenses for a child that is growing and stuff. And if you guys want to look up how much it costs to raise a child from like 0 to 18, you can like Google it and they'll tell you like how much it'll cost to raise a child from 0 to 18. And you'll know, if you're planning on having a child, how much it would cost you, what you actually need, you know. And I think that's a very responsible thing to do, is before people have kids, they should really, be thinking about, okay, how much is this going to cost for me to raise this child, for me not to ask anybody for help for childcare and education and, different types of other expenses. You know what I'm saying? So, um, what I can really just say is that, my coworker, she's very smart. And I think she's a very smart, very driven young lady and things. And I think that it's wonderful that she's thinking generationally, like she was saying about, the welfare of her kids. But when I heard her start considering and thinking about what her life would be like without kids, then that made me have the realization of, oh, well, she's possibly regretting having children. And she doesn't even want to give herself those thoughts, because it's probably going to make her, more stressed out and more aware of the reality of her situation with having children, because she has two babies, two of them. And she's also shared with me, she said she barely has any time for anything, and I'm just like, man, you don't have time for anything, because she has to focus on raising her kids. She has a partner that she has, I believe she has a boyfriend, but yeah, she has to devote a lot of her time to her kids. And, with her working and having to spend time with, her kids and stuff, she doesn't really have any time for herself, and I was just like, man, that must be really tough. And I can't imagine like having to, you know, cover those costs. I've heard from relatives that I have about the cost of having kids and stuff like that and stuff. And it must be very much a struggle, because kids cost money, and they do. And I think people are well meaning when they choose to have kids, because they do it because they feel like they want to have kids. They're told, by people in their lives, have them while you're young, and they kind of, are following the advice of their family members. I heard it in my family. Somebody said the same thing to me. They're like, oh, well, have them while you're young, and I was just like, and I knew they were talking about kids, but I was like, well, you know, in my perspective, you know, I feel that, if I were going to have children, then I would want to make sure I have the finances to do that if I were going to have children. But in this day and age, with everything going on, with with how hard it is to get a job, you know, and the cost of everything going up, you know, personally, from my opinion, I don't feel that people should be having kids right now because of how expensive stuff is. And yes, there are incentives. I mean, yeah, people do get, you know, uh, they get to, put certain things down on their taxes if they have kids, and get like the child care tax credit and all that stuff if they have kids. But the thing of it is that you're only going to get tax money once a year. You know what I mean? You only gonna get that. You literally only gonna get that, and then what are you gonna do the rest of the time? You know what I'm saying? So, I know that for people who have kids, I think it's great for people to have kids as long as they really want the kids. Okay. So long as they really want the kids, as long as, they are not following a trend, as long as they want to, have children that's going to make the world a better place, and like they want to raise children that are leaders, that are, going to really help out society, you know what I'm saying? And really do something for society, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But for people who, who are just following the trend, who are just saying, oh, I want to have a kid because, my friend had a kid, or, my cousin had a kid, or, somebody on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or TikTok had a kid. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's a reason for people to have kids. Some people choose to have kids because, their parent didn't do well at raising them. So they feel like, okay, I want to have a kid because I want to show that I will raise kids better than my parent would. You know what I'm saying? And I don't feel like that's a reason to have kids. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's important to think about the world that you're bringing this child into. What's going on in the world? What is life like for kids in this day and age? You know what I'm saying? Like, really, what's going on? You know, I think people need to think about that. I mean, there's school shootings, there's kids getting bullied, there's, places going out of business. You know, it doesn't mean people can't start a business, but it takes a while to do that. You know what I mean? Like, things in this world are uncertain, and with the cost of stuff going up, having a child is only going to add to your expenses. And people may feel like, well, if they have a child, they feel like their parents or relatives are going to help them. Well, you can definitely burn bridges if you're doing that, because people's relatives are going to get tired of watching their kids. They're definitely going to do that because you know their relatives may start feeling like they're being used just to raise a kid, you know what I'm saying, and help raise a child, and they may not want to do that. And that relative may want to have their free time back. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that it's very important, if people are bringing kids into this world, it's important to think about the way the world is right now. What's going on in the world? Are you bringing a child of color? Are you bringing a black child into this world, or African child into this world? A child who's going to have a hard time getting a job into this world, that is going to face, disadvantages, that children of other races will not. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people need to think about that. Just because there's things like food stamps and welfare right now doesn't mean that when you have a child that that's going to be available. It doesn't mean that it will. Okay. So, because those things could end up going away, who knows when, in the news, I know that I heard like last year or so, like I've heard them talking about getting rid of food stamps because, people are selling food stamps and stuff like that and things. And some people just stay on food stamps. I think there is so much benefit to things like, Section 8 and food stamps and things. I think those are good things and good programs for people to participate in. I think it is. And I think it can really help people who need it. It really can. But the situation is when people stay on it as a crutch. you know what I'm saying, as a means of doing that, and not really leveling themselves up, if that makes sense. So, like I was saying, my coworker, she's very smart, she's very driven. I think the fact that she has two kids, I think that is a bit of a challenge for her, but she does have a boyfriend and they're working together. And, I'm sure that they're having a rough time with having two kids. I think when they first got together, they probably weren't having a hard time, but now they are. You know what I mean? And I think it sucks in a way because, having to think about not being able to feed your kids can't be a good feeling. I'm not saying she has that, but that could be something. You know what I'm saying? She may have to go without things for herself because she's thinking about her kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, being a parent, it can't be easy. There are times I'm sure parents want to just be by themselves. They want to chill out. They want to enjoy stuff. But being a parent, that means you have to be selfless. You have to put your needs on the back burner and put the child's needs ahead of yours. And, when I'm going to the store, I see people yelling at their kids. I've seen, black women hitting their kids and stuff like that. And I'm just like, why did you have kids? If you gonna yell at a kid that you have, why did you bring the baby into this world to begin with? You could have just not had kids and then you wouldn't have to be yelling at a child. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not just saying there's black women, there's other women too that yell at their kids and stuff like that and stuff, and they get frustrated and overwhelmed. And they probably do. Because, having kids is a struggle. You know what I'm saying? And it is. It would be great if this world were more supportive of people raising kids and there was a safe enough world where we don't have to worry about things happening to kids. But this is a world where, you know, um, there's a lot of difficulties going on for people who have kids and for people who don't have kids. You know, one thing I can say about my coworker, I am proud of her. I am proud of her for at least um, trying to make a better life for her children. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. Um, and I hope that she does well as a realtor because I think she could do pretty well at it. I think she can. And I think that it's great. I might, like I said, I might look into the whole being a realtor thing. I might think about it and see if I'm interested. But I think it must be pretty hard for people with kids right now, especially the more kids you have. I'm sure it must be more expensive. If you guys have any, thoughts about some of the things I've said so far, leave a comment. Let me know what you think, because I'm curious to get some other perspectives other than, just mine. So, without further ado, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I hope this has been just like an interesting video. Thank you for watching. Bye.